Clark to the rim. An 11-0 Iowa run. As one of the arena cameramen got hit there after the bucket, and the officials stopped play.
Right here, this is Caitlin Clark all on her own, jumping out to double team. She sensed that she could get the steals, that she could create some havoc, and she did, and got the layup the other way. And let's go.
Gabby Marshall approves.
I drive a very nice car. It's very fast, very shiny. But sadly, it's not built for the famous Aussie lifestyle. And I love the famous Aussie lifestyle. I love the fashion. I love the food. But mainly, I like to drive here. So this is my second car. Designed for my second home, Australia. Bike rack, rod holders, roof racks, thong storage, built-in pie oven, freshwater shower. Oh, hey Barrow. Walter is having a little shower too. Budget smuggler drying system, BRS, buck reduction system. Mullet aeration technology.
Check this out. That's a bird.
I'm going to be busy racing my first car, so I put this baby on Uber Car Share. You can rent it for free, because I am very rich already. Australia's home of second cars. Valtteri will miss you.
We're ready to go. 10 laps or 20 minutes, whichever comes first. Felix Rosenqvist and Scott McLaughlin, they make up the front row, and we see green in the first non-points race in INDYCAR since 2008, and there's a crash already. It's the Juncos Hollinger Chevrolet, and they hit Rinus VeeKay.
Looks like Will Power involved there as well. Contact so early on the brakes into turn one, as there's a battle up front now. Rosenqvist defending against McLaughlin outside of turn two. Wheel-to-wheel diff.
There may not be any points on the line, but these guys want the cash, and they are racing hard.
Did you see Colton Herta a little bit out of line there at the back of the field? And again, the brake zones have been a big topic of conversation. A little bit of contact there with Colton. Scott Dixon. It was Scott Dixon that just misjudged the brake a little bit, got into the back of Grosjean. Colton Herta maybe even into the back of Dixon a little. And then as Grosjean shot across, hit Rinus VeeKay.
Turn 15, turn 16, and the final turn 17 is waiting. And the stretch to the line is here. Felix Rosenqvist win heat one at the Thermal Club $1 Million Challenge. Scott McLaughlin goes through. There's a scrap on here. Unfortunately, it's not for that sixth and final position. That's going to go to Colton Herta. Palou gets a great start.
Great jump from him on the inside. Graham Rahal lining up third. You see the McLaren going on the inside of, I believe, Tom Blomqvist. A little bit of contact. Alex Rossi sideways. Trouble to get the power down out of two diff.
Linus Lundqvist is that all blue car on the inside. Graham Rahal is on the outside of him in the white, blue, and black car. And this is a great start for Rahal.
You see the push to pass. Rossi's had to burn a lot to get to this point. He's burning
there
some
goes.
more now. Here we go.
Blomqvist he shows his shoulder going into the corner. They almost touch.
So he tried to put Rossi off his game there a little bit, and Rossi puts him off the track. And it is hello, Palou. Alex is going to easily win heat two.
Great job, man. Great job, everybody.
The race is on for that final position, because Pato Award hasn't given up on catching his teammate, but he's only got 2 corners left to do anything about it. Alexander Rossi is going to get that 6th and final place. Thermal Club $1 Million Challenge is away.
Palou with a massive jump there. That's what he needed to get to the point clean. Further back, it's McLaughlin working the high side of Rosenqvist.
He goes around Felix Rosenqvist. Graham Rahal out in the dirt. His teammate Lundgaard in that black and red machine looking for a line.
2x2, you see Lundgaard on the inside of Rahal there, already at the back. Colton Herta taking his time, just tiptoeing around. We're seeing the strategy play out immediately, but up front, Scott McLaughlin's got the bit between his teeth, side by side with Agustin Canapino through 4 and 5. Great action.
So Townsend, here's how it runs. You can go 10 seconds slower than the leaders and not go down a lap in these first 10 laps here at Thermal. So 100% the strategy, as Rob Edwards promised. Go slow for Colton Herta, hoping to go fast later.
The final half is underway, and everybody is racing for the big money.
McLaughlin very close through turn 17 there. Both drivers on the button. A lot more from Palou.
Canapino and Rossi, I think, side by side. Canapino got into the left rear of Alexander Rossi, and look who picked up a spot. Colton Herta.
Is he going to do the switchback?
Tries Joseph Newgarden. They're wheel to wheel. A couple of Chevrolet drivers. Team Penske, Aaron McLaren going at it. And Rossi moves over on Newgarden. They almost hit.
Better be careful for both of them. They go wide. They gave up at least 2 spots, I think. Lundqvist to the inside. And Herta. Here comes Herta. Look at him. He's making a move the inside of Lundqvist. He gets another one. Colton Herta in the top 5. 8 laps to go grab $500,000. He is on his way.
This is it. Herta on the inside of Armstrong, and he's got him.
Oh, he might have to drive off track. No, he's able to hold it in line, and that's the move from Colton Herta. P4.
26-year-old Spaniard, Alex Palou, wins the Thermal Club $1 Million Challenge.
Let's go! Yee!
Scott McLaughlin of Team Penske follows him home in second, and Felix Rosenqvist for Meyer Shank Racing in third. And Colton Herta's strategy nets him 4th place.
Up next, it's the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach, Sunday, April 21st. Watch it at 3 p.m. on USA Network.
Drivers, start your
Good evening, race fans. Welcome to the Draft of the Circus program brought to you by Sinister One Productions. My name is Frank Santoroski. I'll be your host for the next hour as we go over this past weekend in racing and preview next week. Joining me, I have Luis Torres, Christopher DeHardy, and Adam Schrack. Fellas, how we doing?
Doing good. Fantastic.
Good to see you guys. I've got Richard and Lee both off on assignment. Richard, I believe, is in Sonoma this week with Toyota, and Lee, of course, on the jet flying Graham Rahal and Courtney Force around like he likes to do when he's not hanging out with us. So for those of you who don't know, Adam runs the Elite IndyCar fan page on Facebook. Adam's been on here once before. Chris has been on here on and off, but both these guys are my IndyCar ringers, and I figure since we had a kind of a new and a special, very different kind of IndyCar event this week, I'd bring both these guys in, kind of break it down. Now, Adam, you spent your weekend at Thermal as an invited guest, as an invited guest of our mutual friend, Don Cusick. So you got the VIP treatment, but as I understand it, every paying spectator got the VIP treatment as well. And overwhelmingly, folks that went to the event had nothing bad to say about it at all. In fact, some of the feedback I've got from some folks that, some races you feel like they treat fans like they're fans, like get to you if we can, or sometimes, the fans are treated like guests. But overwhelmingly, what the feeling I get is that the fans there at Thermal were treated like they were part of the IndyCar family. Does that sound about right, Adam?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they billed it as a VIP experience, and it was a VIP experience for sure. I've been following a lot of the online stuff, and it seems like people who watched it on TV, by and large, didn't care for it. I haven't got around to watching it on Peacock yet, or NBC, the replay of it. So I don't know how well it was on TV. I imagine it was kind of meh, because it was kind of that at the track watching the actual racing. But there were no points on the line, so it's not like my favorite driver winning a bunch of money or winning a little money. That's neither here nor there to me. So the racing didn't really have any effect on the championship. So it was really just about everything else that was going on there, which was incredible. I mean, there were only probably a few hundred fans there. I was told by someone that they sold 515 tickets. That even seemed a little high. But yeah, the way they treated us, I posted this online, but they had so many shuttles that you had no wait time essentially for a shuttle. You'd be walking somewhere and a shuttle would come up and say, "Hey, do you want to ride?" If you did, you hopped on. If you wanted to hoof it, you just kept walking. Everything was free, quote unquote free, because of course the people that were there who paid $500, but they had some amazing food trucks there. They had all sorts of desserts. They had a full bar with cocktails and wine and beer and bottled water, and all that was free. You just went up and got whatever you wanted. And I don't know if the drivers were giving any talking points like, "Hey, the people here are paying a lot of money to be here, so be extra accessible." It's not like IndyCar drivers are standoffish anyway. You can pretty much access them on any track. But the difference was, I think, because there were no points on the line, for the drivers, they were a lot more laid back, because I don't think they really put that much emphasis on winning this or finishing well. And if you had a poor outing, it didn't destroy your championship or knock you way down the point standings. So it almost felt like they were treating it like a closed practice session or a closed test. The fans just happened to be there, and they didn't really even pay attention. Or I shouldn't say they didn't pay attention. They didn't seem to mind that we were there. They just went about their business as normal. Sometimes at a race, I've been to, Sonoma and Long Beach and Fontana, of course, the Indy 500 many times, and the drivers are hounded. And so they spend a lot of time in their trailer because people are putting stuff in their face to sign that they might sell on eBay, or they just want a picture, but there's just fans everywhere. At Thermal, it was like you turn around, it's like, "Oh, hey, there's Alex Palou. No one's standing by him. Let's go talk to him." "Okay, thanks, Alex. Let's go there. Oh, hey, look, there's Grosjean. Let's go say hi to him and get a picture." I think I got pictures with like 20 plus of the drivers. Talked to Jim Meyer for a while. Talked to quite a few people. And then the way the staff was, I mean, everyone who drove a shuttle was extremely nice and outgoing and made you feel like you were very important. Granted, I had maybe a VIP plus treatment with what Don Cusick did for us. We got to sit in the suite, and he gave us a little tour on his golf cart. But everyone who was there and who paid, like, I talked to every fan that I could. I said, "What's your take on this?" And pretty much to a person who was wide-eyed, like, "Oh my God, can you believe this? Can you believe we're here for this?" Because it was just like us and the drivers. Some people have called it a fantasy camp, and maybe that's what it was like. But the drivers didn't hide in their trailers. They were out and about during in between sessions, just walking around. If you wanted to talk to them, you just went up and talked to them. There was hardly any wait in line for anything. I mentioned this in one of our posts on Elite IndyCar, but when we got lunch on, I think it was Friday, went to the food trucks. We were standing in line for just a few minutes, and then I see a bunch of McLaren team members come up, and I turn around right behind me, and oh, there's Tony Kanaan in line to get some tacos with me. And then two people behind him, oh, there's Malukas. Well, let's go get pictures with them, because they're in line waiting for food as well. And I made the joke that, when you're in Long Beach, you're standing in the King Taco line, Kanaan or Elio don't walk up and wait in line to get food with you. So it was just very much a very open, full access experience. The way it was laid out was there's basically just a road separating pit lane from the paddock, which was huge because they didn't have any other series there, so they just had nothing but room. And it was just sort of, you just wandered around. You went to the pits, you went back to the paddock. It was all right there. And you could see, anybody who might be involved in the series just walking around and go up and talk to them. And like I said, everyone who was working there, Don, of course, was very gracious with all his, everything he did for us. But it wasn't just for me. Everyone he saw, he would take wherever they wanted to go, show them something. He took us to a garage with a whole bunch of McLaren supercars and an F1 car. It might have been the most fun I've had at a track if you take the racing aspect out. Like, it's hard to top Indy, but Indy is so hectic, and you're not going to just walk up to 20 drivers in a day. So yeah, it was incredible. I've never seen anything like that. Probably won't ever be an experience quite like that in an IndyCar race unless they do this again.
Yeah, it's kind of disappointing that they only sold about 500 tickets, but when you think about it, the original price point for the ticket was $2,000, and then they when they didn't sell a lot, they kind of came back and then scaled it back to 500. But I think by the time they made the move to scale it back to 500, folks had either not made plans to travel, or it was a little too late to say, oh, it's only $500, let's go. For anybody that's not in the immediate area. So a lot of those folks missed out. So yeah, but to your point, yeah, it's for an event that was kind of billed as a made-for-TV event. On TV, it was underwhelming. It really was. So, Christopher, I'll give you a second to unmute yourself. Let's talk about the race and the racing action. Let me get your kind of perspective on this.
Well, the racing left me a bit underwhelmed. Now, Colton Herta had the strategy that ultimately netted him $100,000 or however much of the prize money he gets from Andretti Global. But I'm talking about just the 20-lap main event. I'm not talking about the heat races before, because that's not where the money was paid. In the 20-lap main event, once Scott McLaughlin got to second place and Felix Rosenqvist got to third, the top three did not change positions once in all 20 laps. In fact, if Colton Herta hadn't gotten fourth place from Marcus Armstrong with about 3 laps to go, the top four wouldn't have changed positions. It just felt flat. I think that for the second half of the race, they should have done a double file restart. I think for the start of the race, not much really could have done at the start of the race, but it just overall felt like it was just flat. Like there was nothing really exciting about it. Now there was a column that I put out for Front Stretch that I think, or that I entered in last night for Front Stretch. I should go up either today or tomorrow. But I had an idea on how to spice up the show, and I'll just briefly go into this because I know we got other things to talk about. The idea I came up with was when they had the random draw for Group 1 and Group 2 for Heat 1 and Heat 2, scrap qualifying completely. Instead of having them do standard 8 minutes, 12 minutes of qualifying, line them up in reverse championship order. For Heat number 1, you would have had Stingray Robb and Romain Grosjean on the front row. For Heat number 2, you would have had, if my memory is correct, Marcus Ericsson and Marcus Armstrong on the front row. Joseph Newgarden would have been in the back with Scott McLaughlin. In the first heat, Palou would have been in the back. How exciting would that have been? You would have had probably a third or half the field of difference in the field for the main event had that been done.
Yeah,
and I don't think you would have had the same people win. Yeah, you wouldn't have had the same people winning. And I think that would have shuffled it up a bit more. But like I said, the 20-lap feature, it just felt flat to me.
Yeah, the whole running all 20 laps on the one set of tires, I really think they could have used a live pit stop and a tire change instead of an intermission. Yeah, and I know they didn't bring the full crews there, and they weren't really set up to kind of do that.
They couldn't do live pit stops because the pit boxes were too small.
Right.
Kevin Lee and Kurt Cavan said on trackside those pit boxes were only 30 feet. At Mid Ohio, those pit boxes, which are the smallest on the schedule, those are 35 feet. So there was no space for them to be able to do live stops, unfortunately.
So which kind of means that in order to, if they want to branch out and have an actual event there, they're going to have to do some renovations on that pit road. So. But
if I recall that you also had some of the cars that did make the main event literally sitting on pit road, so that would add an additional challenge to that.
It's interesting. you mentioned cars that didn't make the main event. You got some really heavy hitters that didn't make that main event. I mean, Scott Dixon didn't make the main event after he had the little run in with Grosjean that gave Grosjean yet another chance. What a little bitch he can be when things don't go his way. But Will Power didn't make the but then Rahal gets all their cars in, right? So, and it's Christopher's kind of
Power didn't make it either, I believe.
That's what I said. Will Power didn't get in.
No.
Will Power didn't get in. Rahal got all their cars in.
Rahal got their cars in, but Graham had a sticking throttle and he didn't take part in the second half.
And Pietro, didn't get all the fuel in. So he was eliminated for the second half too, which was interesting. That we're second half of the main event, we're down half the field, or we're down 2 cars out of the field. So, but yeah, it was kind of underwhelming. Could definitely use some tweaking, but as a VIP event though, I think they knocked it out of the ballpark for everything I've heard from folks that were there. And Adam, you actually got some good press out of the thing. I saw you were interviewed by David Land. You were quoted by Marshall Pruitt in Racer Magazine or Racer Online. So, good job there getting yourself out there, getting your name and Elite IndyCar out there in the world. So, speaking of which, if you guys want to, if you're on Facebook, hop on over to Elite and join Adam. Tell us a little bit about some of the giveaways and some of the things we're doing. I mean, one of the neat things we're doing is we're actually going to be an associate sponsor on Connor Daly's car in the Indy 500 with money we've raised through the group. So, but Adam, I just want you to give you a minute to shill for Elite.
Yeah, I'll shill. You keep saying I run it, but you're leaving out the fact that you helped me run it.
Yeah. Well, you're like the main guy, right? But there's me, there's Kurt, there's George.
Fair enough, but
I'd never be able to sometimes do it on Nick. Oh, I know, absolutely.
Well, Nick, that's not what.
Sometimes Nick. I said, yeah.
Yeah. So what we do is, I remember years ago someone said you guys should sell shirts, and I thought, who the f is going to buy shirts for a Facebook group? And it turns out a lot of people wanted to, and so I thought, well, let's start doing this and raise money and do giveaways because I thought that would make the group grow. And so it started small. I think the first year we sold shirts and stickers, we netted $1,000, which we thought, oh my God, can you believe $1,000? We can give away 10 things this year for $100 value. And now we make thousands of dollars every year. I think we gave away $7,000 of merchandise last year. Just downstairs on my dining room table, which is now like the official Elite IndyCar hub, I must have $2,000 worth of diecast sitting there to give away. I bought $600 worth of thermal merchandise this weekend just because we do things, and everything, all the money we make goes back into the group. So none of it goes to me. I do it on my free time because I like to. I always make sure that everyone knows I don't take any money from it, because once I start taking money, then it's a job and the expectations are different. But we just have a lot of fun. We do threads for every qualifying and practice and qualifying and race. We meet up at every race. We what else?
We have the podium raffles.
Yeah, we do these things where we do a raffle.
Podium raffles are fun. You win some cash. Throw some money in.
Fantasy league. Yeah, we have a fantasy league, which
we have over 200
people.
Yeah, 200 people in our fantasy league. Yeah.
So the winner
is $1,000, right?
Yeah, I think second is 600, 400, and 200 for the top 4. And then at every race, the top 5 people for that race win 180, 60, 40, 20. Sometimes we give away stuff in there. The first race of the year, we gave away, what was it, a Tommy Milton diecast, 118 diecast for the something like that. We give away stuff every single weekend.
And it's good stuff. It's not your garden variety junk. We're talking
junk. We give away
118 diecast, merch, apparel, cool stuff. So
so downstairs I have like both AJ, not AJ Ford, Alan Sir, Johnny Lightning cars are downstairs. I've got I think another Tommy Milton. I've got Wilbur Shaw diecast. I got all sorts of stuff piled up to give away, tons of hats, just an insane amount of stuff. And on top of that, we do, we want to be like your one-stop shop for IndyCar. Come here, we'll have all the news there, and we'll do all this other fun stuff that I know for a fact, because I'm in all the groups. None of the other IndyCar Facebook's group do the stuff we do. They just post articles and have discussions. We do way more than that. And we raised, so far we raised over 10 grand to give to Cusick Motorsports that I've already sent them. and we're going to be on Connor Daly's car on both of his mirrors. It's going to say Elite IndyCar on both of the side mirrors, which is pretty cool. You know, I know it's a drop in the bucket as far as what it costs to run a car at Indy, but for a Facebook group to have people actually sending in hundreds of dollars, we had 5 or 6 people sending $1,000 just because they are really into what Elite Indy does. So it's pretty neat. Hopefully, we'll get some cool shots of the car in pit lane with the Elite IndyCar on the mirrors, and that'll be really neat.
Yeah. So now, Louise, you've been quiet over there, which is usually Richard's job. So, I know you're a big IndyCar guy as well. I'd like to get some of your impressions out of Thermal. You know, obviously we've talked about the VIP experience. We've talked about the racing itself. And I did want to mention, you remember last week when we were picking for Thermal? Do you remember who Lee picked?
Wasn't it Palou?
No, Lee picked Stingray Rob, remember?
Oh, yeah.
And he said, and this is what he said, right? It took me like 2 days to process why he said that, right? He said I think Stingray Rob, because he's got more miles around that track than anybody else. And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about, Lee. Then it occurred to me, right? Because last year, among the guests we had Stingray Rob on, and we also had Stephen Wilson and Don Cusick on. And I think he's confusing Stephen Wilson with Stingray Rob. So
that probably makes sense because before he went to Indy Lights and the formerly known Road to Indy ladder, I still prefer to say it that way. I don't know why. That's just me. But I just remember him running Can-Am West races in Meridian. That's all I remember from him beforehand. But yeah, as far as this race, as Adam alluded to, this is extremely true. Of course, being a pundit, I cannot partake in those giveaways, but they do have amazing stuff when I do get the chance to check around. And I'm just on the low end on the contributing factor because I have other stuff to focus, especially this past weekend with Supercross and all that. But that said, I have to agree. I think everything that is said is true. I've had that feeling for the people that were there at Thermal. They had a great time from the experience perspective, and that's always nice to see. From the racing action, if it wasn't for Herta and that crew doing some strategy or Alexander Rossi making some moves a little bit, yeah, it was just very underwhelming. That could require some key changes. I do love the idea of having the reverse championship standings. What's there to lose? It's a non-points race. It would be neat to see some other teams that don't get the chance to be up front, see how they do, see how like a Grosjean, which with a team like Huco's, it may bode well having that valuable track position for Stingray Rob. That could showcase see what he's got, whether or not he'll make it out of turn one with the lead. That's completely unknown. You can guess with a flip of a coin is that's going to happen or not. But the one thing that the TV wise, made for TV. When I think of made for TV, I think like action, intense, low crash course TV. Obviously, we don't want to see someone get harmed in that regard, but that's how it's usually associated with the quote-unquote made TV. You have your car crash moments or your drama and escalations. Didn't really see much of it. And then when you look at the camera production, made it look like I was back in 2020 until the last lap where they're actually panning it like close-up shots with the crowd. That pan out to show Palou navigating around the 3+ miles road course. For most of it, it looked like there's nobody really there until the last time. Okay, they're there, but they were not really showing it, whether it's just by design from a production standpoint, more than likely. But I was mostly underwhelmed, and it was just a quick race. It came in and went. MVP would have to be probably Herta and Rossi for making it at least interesting. But also, you have days where a driver just dominates as well, and Palou just dominated, period.
And for that matter, we're 2 races in where Felix Rosenqvist looked really on point in the Meyer-Shank car. I mean, he dominated his heat race, ended up 3rd in the main event there behind Palou and the other guy that was 2nd, which I don't know why it escapes me right to 2nd.
McLaughlin.
That's right, McLaughlin. Yeah, because McLaughlin's going to win a championship year if Palou doesn't catch fire.
Can I give a couple critiques?
Yes.
Can I give a couple critiques?
Yes. Say whatever you want. It's a safe place.
I did find it funny that like the passes that Don Cusick gave us said member pass or member guest, and then it said made for TV event, and then I thought that was strange, and I was curious if the regular ticket said that. It just made me think, why would I want to buy a ticket to go to an event that said it's made for TV? Because wouldn't I want to watch it on TV? But if it's made for TV, it seems like they should have had all sorts of crazy camera angles, like have some drones in there, make it look like not what a normal IndyCar race looks like. I did watch a couple of the test sessions on Peacock after we left the track because I wanted to see what it looked like on TV. But for it being made for TV, it seemed like they covered it basically like they would cover anything else. So I don't know how it's made for TV any more than St. Pete was made for TV.
Yeah, I mean, you know what's made for TV? WWF wrestling. Because it looks good on TV, but if you go see it live, it's fake as hell.
Yeah, well, I guess it was made for TV and that they didn't let many fans in. So that would have been a critique. Obviously, the format, they tried something, it didn't work, but my ideal thing, if they were to do this again, I would like to see this before the season because, the NFL does preseason games. They play the game, but whoever wins doesn't matter. The fans don't care because it's just about seeing how the first stringers do. But you still get to see football. And so it makes sense to have a non-points race and you want to give cash out, whatever, that's fine. Have that before the season as like a buildup because it does seem strange to have the first race. Like imagine if the NFL had week 1 and then week 2, it's more exhibition games.
That's literally baseball right now because of the Dodgers had their first 2 games with the Padres, and then it's back to preseason, and then it's back to the regular season. Yeah.
Okay, well, I don't follow baseball, and there's I guess another reason not to. So I know with the scandal, they had a whole bunch of stuff. The Olympics. I was talking to Marshall Pruitt for a while, and the Olympics messed things up, and then NASCAR changed their schedule, so that bumped IndyCar out of Texas. So they needed something because 6 weeks between. 4 weeks is already a lot between one race and another. It should never be more than one off weekend and then back to it. But having 6 weeks is just insane. So at least they had something. I'm more of a glass half full person, so I don't think I would have complained if I wasn't there because at least it was way more than the amount of practice we get for a normal race weekend, which is like an hour Friday, an hour Saturday, and then qualifying. We got 2 hours and then another 3 hours on Friday, and another 2 hours on maybe even 4 hours on Saturday.
Yeah, I want to say, I think I heard it was like 9 hours total of testing time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think you could tweak the format a lot. Having the drivers drive around at 70% speed, because when it first started, we thought, what is wrong with was it Colton or someone else who was way behind? And then I realized a couple laps in, I was like, oh, they're just saving tires. That's why, because they're not going to get lapped in 10 laps, so it doesn't matter. So maybe they could make it so your gap would be the same, so no one would do that. There's a whole bunch of stuff they could do to tweak the format because the format did not work. But they tried it, and that's great. Now they know what works and what doesn't work. So I'm not so down on it, even though the racing aspect didn't work, because they can fix it and they can do other things. There's a lot of stuff that's good there if it happens again. I obviously, as much fun as it was, I'd prefer to have that weekend be a race weekend, a real race, even if it was, Watkins Glen or somewhere, a track they could actually maybe get to that I probably wouldn't attend living in California because I just would prefer a real race. But it's still, all in all, it was not a bad weekend, I don't think.
I mean, give us our IndyCar fix, in the middle of that break. So, even if IndyCar fans, traditionally like to bitch, and this, give them their, enough bitching for the whole season here out of some of these people. And, some of the, I like to torture myself by reading social media comments, and some of the stuff is just that they're annoyed with is ridiculous. A couple of comments, the guys, oh, this track is just not safe for IndyCars. I'm like, where are you coming up with that? The FIA thinks it's plenty safe. You know what I mean? So
I think we got too accustomed with walls and not guardrails. I think that's probably why. I don't know.
But yeah, Thermal has those buffer barriers behind the Armco. There's 3,000 of those installed on the track. Those are state of the art. They're every bit as good as a safer barrier. Adam and I read a whole case study on track safety, and they use Thermal as a case study. So anything. But, if that's the best you can come up with is, oh, this track is not safe for IndyCar, just,
Let's be honest. There were a percentage of fans who went in wanting it to be bad. So
yes,
they were gonna, it was confirmation bias. They were gonna look for anything that wasn't good.
Sure, absolutely.
Before the thing happened, everyone said it was going to be horrible and it was awful and what a terrible idea. So of course they weren't going to be blown away by anything that happened there.
Yeah, everybody want to call it though, rich man's playground and this and that, and
that's what racing is.
Fire festival.
To their point, the television coverage was a little bit heavy on just showing how nice some of the houses and stuff were. You can only take so much of that before, okay, you rich guys are rubbing it in now. And I can see that, I want to watch a race car, not lifestyles of the rich and famous. But, I don't need to see this guy's pool and jacuzzi and this and that. Show me what's in his garage, that's what's cool. Some of the pictures you sent me of these cool cars the guys have in their garages. Pretty good stuff. Yeah,
that's what those of us there got to see.
Right.
Like the owner of the track, his house was right by the suite. I didn't get to go in his garage or anything, but just walking by it, I mean, there's several $1 million of cars in there, Rolls Royce and Ferraris and Lamborghini. It's just, yeah. And I like cars. Yes, that's a rich guy. I don't necessarily have this negative reaction to some super rich people that some people have. So I just was like, well, these are cool cars. I'm going to look at these. That's what we saw. That I don't think that kind of stuff doesn't really come across on TV, especially if they're just gushing about how great the place is and how great the members are.
Townsend Bell seemed to turn into Rutledge Wood for the weekend.
Yeah.
So
that's what I've read.
And that scenario would have not been a bad thing because it'll make at least something uniquely different from the broadcast perspective. Like it shows those cars or how stories about the track layout, which I'd imagine are probably told during the practice and qualifying sessions in detail. Because you mentioned 9+ hours of track time. Got to fill it out somehow, depending how much of it was televised or streamed in this case. But
all of it.
Well, that's good for sure. As I alluded to, I was on assignment for a different event, so I haven't caught on of what happened during the session. But I did saw what ultimately happened during the race. But yeah, it's like they're always going to complain. The only critique that I generally had going in is the fact that you go from Southern California one week, and then about 3 to 4 weeks you go back there again. So I'm in the theory of if they want it back, could they try it the week before or back to what you said, preseason? Those are two options that I would not be against with. It's like give it another go.
I really feel like next year's schedule is going to look a little bit different, and it's going to have everything to do with who IndyCar signs up as a television partner if it's not NBC. So we'll just have to kind of play that one out. So we got a couple weeks off, and then we're off to Long Beach, and Long Beach is in the news. I want to cover this one more semi-IndyCar topic before we let you go, Adam. But there's some stories out there floating around that NASCAR is looking to buy 50% stake in the Long Beach Grand Prix. And that Roger Penske is fighting to block that. And I don't know if that means Penske may try to buy that on his own. But I mean, what do you think, Christopher? You're a little more on the inside than Louise and I. Do you feel like if something like that were to happen, that they would keep IndyCar and also run NASCAR, or would NASCAR just shoo IndyCar away from there?
It wouldn't surprise me if NASCAR did shoo IndyCar away from there because you have IMSA there. They're owned by NASCAR, and it would be easier having everything all underneath one roof. Now, granted, it has been an IndyCar staple for many years. NASCAR has been looking at a Southern California race since Fontana is under construction. We don't even know what's going to happen with Fontana at this point. Let's just be real about it here.
That's going to end up in warehouses. That short track will never happen. Mark my words.
I don't think it'll happen.
Unfortunately.
But then again, there was some other story about NASCAR trying to buy some other short track and do some renovations down there as well. I forget where I read it, but it wouldn't surprise me. NASCAR is looking to try and figure out what to do after the LA Coliseum because that market is not going to, or that venue, I don't think is going to go on for that much longer with the Clash. It might, I don't know. I can see how it would be a pain to set up. It would just wouldn't surprise me.
No, I think this year in my book, if I were to say if this year was it, this was it. It just, from my experiences, and especially how things have gone over the every class that I covered in LA, it seems like it got progressively worse in many facets. And this year was absolutely not well fleshed out at all from all. I applaud them for getting the race in one day, but everything else outside of it was just flawed. And saying that is an understatement in my book.
Yeah, but it would be really devastating to IndyCar if they were to lose Long Beach, because that's their other crown jewel race other than Indianapolis, and it's literally the race is a slam dunk every year when it comes to like attendance, and it's just one of the most popular races on the calendar there. So I don't know if the Long Beach fans who are accustomed to seeing open wheel cars there since 1975 are going to kind of warm up to NASCAR, but they might. Who knows? Some folks that go out there, they're just there for the street party and whatnot, and the cars are just there as something to kind of watch every now and again. So that might not make a difference to the crowd, but for those of us who know and love IndyCar and love the Long Beach Grand Prix, it'd be absolutely devastating. So, Adam, you're a California guy and been to the Long Beach Grand Prix many times. You have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, you said that the fans might not care. I kind of think they wouldn't care. I mean, certain diehard IndyCar fans would care, like myself. I mean, I wouldn't go to Long Beach anymore, probably. There's a reason street races are so popular. It's because it's a big downtown party where there are cars. My wife has been to 8 races with me. She's been to Fontana once, Sonoma twice, this thermal race, and then in Long Beach 4 times. And there's a reason that one's by far and away the one she's been to the most, because it's the only one she really likes. Because there's so much else going on that even though I want to sit and watch cars for a little bit, there's just so much else going on. So I have a feeling that, I went to the NASCAR race in Fontana several years ago, and it was packed. So yeah, you might lose some IndyCar fans. You'd probably just swap them out with NASCAR fans. There are certainly NASCAR fans in Southern California. So I don't think the event would suffer as far as how many people they bring in and all of that. For IndyCar fans, it would definitely be devastating. It's the second biggest race in the season. It's the one most of the drivers say is the one after Indy that they want to win. That would. I'm really hoping that doesn't happen, because that would be really sad to lose it. I don't know what other race would be like the next in line as far as the one with the most prestige if you got rid of it.
It's hard to tell. St. Pete, maybe.
St. Pete, maybe. I don't know. I think that I don't think there's any chance NASCAR would say, yeah, keep racing here with us. I don't see what's in it for them, because I think they would still bring in huge crowds.
Yeah.
And so what's the why potentially, allegedly that's IndyCar is a competitor, even though they've teamed up on these rare race weekends where they've had double headers. I think they probably want to buy because they want NASCARs to race there. I don't know what kind of race they'd possibly put on. It's hard enough for IndyCars to pass there.
Yeah. All right. Well, Adam, I know you got to go. So I really want to thank you for coming on. And anytime. You're always welcome on the show with us, because you know an awful lot about IndyCar, and I love talking to you. Of course, heck, you and I talk just about daily anyway. So
it's gonna say
yeah. So always something. All right, so Adam, we're gonna let you go. We're gonna take a quick break while Adam gets out of here, and we'll be back on in just a few moments. Thank you. All right, we're back. So let's turn our attention to Formula One. And usually our Formula One segment starts with, well, Max won again. So what else is there to talk about? But interestingly enough, Louise, did we have a surprise winner this week?
Not exactly per se, but surprising in the sense of the circumstances regarding our winner had the race before, as in Carlos Sainz, who didn't compete in the second round of the World Championship because he had an emergency surgery.
It was a smooth operation.
There you go.
Well, yeah, he's right back in and winning, so.
Yeah, so much that his buddy Lando Norris felt like, oh, that's probably what I need to finally win one of these things.
Yeah. Somebody made a joke that he was car was underweight at the end of the race by the amount of about the size of an appendix. So Max didn't win. Max ran into trouble early, uncharacteristic mechanical from Red Bull, but your boy Sergio failed to capitalize. And here's a guy whose job
penalty.
Here's a guy whose job is on the line, and perfect opportunity for him to go ahead and grab a race win. And where does he end up? Fifth, right? Two Ferraris and the McLaren ahead of him.
Yep.
So
grid penalty did not help him either, and still. Yeah, I'm going to say it right now. It's safe to say that Red Bull's going to go to Carlos. I would not be awfully surprised if it goes to Carlos. And if I were Red Bull, I would look outside of your pool. Unless you want to bring Liam Lawson to the second car, that's up to them. But you can't let Carlos go and go to Mercedes, which Mercedes didn't have any better of a day than Max did.
No, Mercedes both DNF'd. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, George Russell DNF'd in grand fashion. So, and we'll go over some of that. Chris, you get a chance to watch?
I did. I actually got back into the apartment. I went to go grab a couple of drinks from the convenience store nearby. That's only two. There's a lot of convenience stores that are closed at 11 o'clock on a Saturday night. I did not expect that, but I digress. I had to go to like 3 different ones. It was like, why can't I get a large Coke on 11 o'clock on a Saturday night? Anyway, so I get back in and I get back to my desktop where I have the race being streamed on, and I happen to see Carlos just in front of Max, and I'm like, okay, that won't last for very long. And then I see the first puff of smoke from Max's car, and I'm like, something's not right here. And Crofty is just losing his mind. And then we see Max just slowing down a lot on the backside of the course. And I'm like, oh, where's the script? This isn't in the script. What do we do now here?
Yeah, well, we'll have a race on our hands this week, So
But Carlos, to his credit, he maintained everything just the way he needed to. He did everything properly, and he showed everyone that, hey, if the Red Bull fails, I can take advantage of it. Carlos did a fantastic job, and full marks to him for that. 16 days after surgery, so he did a fantastic job. Nothing to take away from him on that.
Yeah, I mean, here's a guy who's looking for gainful employment for next year and doing everything right. But I mean, if you look at it though, right? Carlos has 20 podiums now, right? And most people probably don't realize that. I think he's one of the more underrated guys, and he's won 3 times lately, while his teammate Leclerc has been winless since 22. So Carlos is definitely doing everything right, but yet he's the guy they're going to let go and instead of Leclerc when they bring Hamilton out. So, but that.
He's been there as long as Max, when you really think about it, too. Formula One.
Yeah, but you got Red Bull's got a fine seat available, and Mercedes has a fine seat available, and if Carlos keeps it up, that he'll find himself in a pretty good situation next year and not end up in an Alpine or something like that. So.
Or the Kick Sauber, etc., / soon to be Audi, probably.
Yep. So let's talk about Williams for a second, because a very embarrassing weekend for them. They had Albon wrecked his car to the point where it couldn't be repaired, and Williams didn't have enough spare parts or a spare tub on hand to race two cars. And maybe that's related to the fact that it's a flyaway race. Maybe that's related to the fact that their budget is, they're spending a lot less money than the big teams. We'll put it that way.
And Ted Kravitz, what's on him as in James Vowles.
But rather than tell Albon, hey man, you're SOL because you wrecked your car, they tell Logan Sargent, hey, we'll put Albon in your car and you take the weekend off. A move. I mean, mind you, Sargent has been underperforming. But that was kind of a dick move by Williams, honest to God. I really feel like it was.
Yeah, and did not help either for the American crowd that knows that your lone American got booted out from it, even though
through no fault of his own. Now, if Sargent had wrecked the car, I wouldn't have anything to say about this. But the fact that it is what it is. I guess Albon's your number one. I mean, obviously, if Perez wrecked, if Max wrecked his car and they didn't have a spare, they'd set Perez for the weekend, obviously. But we're not talking top of the grid here. We're talking Williams, and they're mid-pack at best, and they're only mid-pack because Alpine and it's just so bad this year. So.
Yeah, it's just generally not a good look for Williams, not a good look for James Vowles either. As I alluded to when the announcement was made, Ted was on him. Like, it was like an investigative report. Like, if James Vowles was like Shohei and the press were Ted Kravitz about the whole betting thing. But, not a good weekend for Williams. And to think that the people were saying, like, man, if they had a spare car, Logan would have been Max for once in his career. And that one time he could have.
That's true, yeah.
Doesn't.
Right. So we alluded to earlier, Russell went out in grand fashion. Yeah, he was and Alonso was ahead of him. He was Alonso suddenly slowed. And Russell kind of just plowed into him and, flipped the car over. Really scary looking crash there. Right towards the end of the race, which, causes to end under virtual safety car. But then Alonso was penalized some crazy 20 seconds, which a lot of folks were like, Chris, what was your take on that? Was that a bit too harsh? Because I watched the replay from the INDYCAR a bunch of times, and I really couldn't tell what Alonso did that was so
egregious.
So egregious that it would call for a 20-second penalty.
It just looked it didn't look like it was anything too massively egregious. It just looked like a racing accident. But yeah, it was I didn't agree with the penalty. I could see why they did it. I don't agree with it. But then again, I'm not the one in race control making that call.
Yeah, I think it's the severity of the crash that probably resulted to the time penalty he got. If it was a minor shunt, then end up on the side, then probably they might look at, okay, fair enough as a racing incident, but I think I think it looks like they've just penalized it based on just the severity of Russell's incident more than anything.
Yeah, but Russell plowed into him.
Yeah,
it's not as if Alonso didn't brake check him. He just was slow through that series of corners. Yeah, I really feel like Russell miscalculated how slow he was going and just came right up on him. And then, so how's that Alonso's fault? You can say, failure to keep pace or whatever, but I don't think it was anything that he did intentional, because you don't intentionally slow down when a guy's coming up behind you. That makes no damn sense in the world. So I'm kind of baffled by it. So is Alonso, and so is that team. But, yeah, it is what it is, I guess. The FIA knows everything, except
yeah, it's up for debate on that. Like the debate of the fact that people like George, I can understand his scenario, but people were saying like, why didn't they not red flag? Here's this thing: Carlos took the white flag. How would you police that if you stopped the race when the leader already took the white flag lap? Would they revert it back to 2 laps prior? I don't. How would you police that ordeal?
Yeah,
when the leader took the white.
Yeah, the race is essentially over.
Yeah.
So no sense in red flagging at that point.
Yeah.
We saw what happened in a couple of years ago when when they
the Latifi crash.
Oh, when Hamilton lost the championship to Max a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and King Latifi happened.
No. Don't bring that up. Don't bring that up. No. We don't want Twitter going after us. No.
Yeah. All right. So anything else compelling out of the Australian Grand Prix? I know that Ricciardo continues to be on the hot seat while Liam Lawson is waiting in the wings, and he continues to underperform. Yuki Tsunoda seems to think that they should put him in the Red Bull next year, and I think Red Bull pretty much told him that not yet, young man.
Gotta get a string of top 10s first.
Yeah. You're doing fine. You're beating your teammate, but your teammate is sucking wind. So I don't know if that car just doesn't agree with Ricciardo, because I really don't feel like he's losing a step, but I think he just can't. I think Yuki's got the car figured out better than he does. If anything, kind of the same thing we saw with like Max and Sergio middle of the year last year. So I don't know if it's set up or if it's just the car itself doesn't agree with Ricciardo. But whatever it is, he needs to fix it. Otherwise, he'll be commentating for television next year.
Yeah, and when you look at somebody that went away from F1 without a ride, and you look what Alonso's been able to do, and then you look at Ricciardo right now, as it gets proven that you could go away and come back and go in full force, but some of them haven't. Some of them don't. Right now, Ricciardo's one of those that's just not quite there yet.
Yep. All right, well, we only got about 4 minutes left in the show, so let's turn our attention to Austin, Texas, and COTA, where NASCAR had a triple header. Keith, do you have that clip? I got a little clip here from the truck race, and I just wanted to show this because I've just honestly never seen anything quite like this happen before.
From afar.
Oh, Keith, just give me a thumbs up when it's over.
Popped right out. Yeah, I'm with you, Phil. I've lost a couple of rear end housings in a wreck or two, but never just driving down the road.
See the shocks flipping around, brake duct hoses flipping around. The rear end gear is in that rear end housing.
Wow.
Bruce Cook is crew chief right now. Just must be beside himself. He's been in this sport a long time. Wonder if he's ever seen that.
Who's branching out of the IndyCar series and been driving a lot of different cars, but certainly I've not seen that happen before. The whole rear wheels and the rear axle and the rear hubs, the whole thing just fell off the truck and rolled away on its own. So that's and I think he actually the team actually got a penalty out of that after all was said and done.
I think he got scot-free from. I don't think he was severely penalized of any kind. The only thing that NASCAR reported was just monetary fines for a couple crew chiefs. So fortunately for Marco, Corey Roper and the 04 team got away scot-free. Even though that did brought up like a 5-minute red flag because of the oil, fortunately he didn't get any ramifications from that ordeal.
Yeah, so that's that's such an odd kind of thing to happen. You got to imagine that something wasn't put together quite right. Some of the bolts weren't tight enough or something. I just I don't think you can if the thing is those things are built to stay together. So they had to not connect something properly for it just to, just in a little slide, just fall right off the car like that. So, but anyway, so it was Corey Heim won the truck race.
Yep.
And then moving on to Xfinity, and we have to have a very brief NASCAR segment down in 2 minutes. Kyle Larson won Xfinity, correct?
Yep, at the expense of Austin Hill and SVG battling way too hard on the white flag lap, which naturally given, but it let Larson get the win because of it.
All right, which takes us to the main event, the Cup race, which I don't think any of us picked William Byron to win.
No, I don't recall him.
I don't. I
picked
really
Ross to win that one, I think.
I picked Ty Gibbs to win. Ty came in third. Christopher Bell was second. Christopher Bell would have been a good pick. He's pretty good on a road course. But, I don't always think of William Byron when it comes to a road course here, But what I do think of when I think of COTA is every series that seems to race there have problems with track limits. Right. And it's just it's kind of the way that the track is set up with such wide, flat runoff areas and low curbing. And you can just drive wherever the hell you want. And of course, we see the Formula One guys get in trouble with it. When INDYCAR raced there the 1 year, and they had guys just, kind of making their own lines through the turns there. But of course, NASCAR, they take that whole thing to a new level. Because, NASCAR is, especially if you watch them at like Watkins Glen, it's like track limits are fictional, they don't exist. Just drive wherever it's flat. But NASCAR handed out a number of penalties for track limit violations this go around at COTA. So, which was, I'm glad to see they're kind of really policing that. So, but
it's one of those deals we'll have to find out what they do with it going forward. It seems like all intents and purposes, COTA might be back next year. And as far as Byron, power of Fugle, that 24 crew seems to be getting the job done a lot this time, for sure. And credit to all of them. They've been clicking on all cylinders to the point we got to consider Fugle and Byron right up there as one of the best driver crew chief combinations in the garage right now.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think they're gonna be strong. They were strong all season last year.
Yes.
They made it all the way into the the Final Four, and I can see them. I can see him winning a championship this year. Honestly, it's really early in the season to say that, but they're continuing. They're picking up right where they left off last year. Being contender week in and week out, and then the other notable thing out of Texas that our ringers in there were really kind of a non-factor. Kobayashi, once again, I think Ricky Stenhouse just hates Japanese people. Stenhouse tried to run Kobayashi off again.
And turned Kobayashi turning Stenhouse around, so it's like double-edged sword.
Samurai sword. All right, well that's got us.
Anyways,
that's got us out of time. We'll have to finish off on that note. So, Christopher, I want to thank you for coming on. Again, thank you to Adam Schrack from Elite IndyCar for joining us. Louise, thank you. I want to thank Louise Torres, Multimedia. I want to thank Uber Australia. If you're in Australia and need an Uber, that's who you call. All right. If you're around here, just call regular Uber. All right. So I want to thank our producer, Keith Hayes, Sinister One Productions. I want to thank Facebook Live, YouTube, and Spotify. But most of all, I want to thank you folks that tuned in tonight. And we'll see you again in a week. Good night.
Thanks for watching Drafting the Circuits. Make sure to follow Drafting the Circuits on Facebook, Spotify, Twitter, and YouTube. Drafting the Circuits is a Sinister One production.